Hello, Donna here. Not really feeling how I look, but I'm gonna get over that. Well, one of these days I'll get over that. Welcome to my channel, Transcending Trauma, Speaking to Solutions. Sorry if it sounds loud. It's a cold, rainy day in Wisconsin. And I want to share, I think it's important, like, for people that are curious and going through similar things. I always love, like, letting people not feel alone. I've felt so alone in my life so many times, and just want to put stuff out there that, someone looking can find something, relatable, and maybe even other people just get understanding. But so I'm being tested for autism today and ADHD. And so I kind of wanted to share the process. So one of my children have already gone through it. I don't know if as an adult it'll be the same process, but I'm like, she's, was diagnosed in her early 20s. So it probably is similar. That doctor only saw up to age 22, I think. So I'm seeing a different doctor. I don't know if it's a different process, but I'll come back on and share some more. So like right now, what I want to do is share the journey to like what it looks like to go through autism and ADHD testing, and what it feels like to, get a late age diagnosis. I'm 56. So I just want to start with like some of the reasons why I'm being tested, besides showing many symptoms of having autism and ADHD. I made a video on the ADHD before, and I think there's a few camps out there about like the thought on like ADHD really being more of like a PTSD response. They share like a lot of the traits are comorbid, like the forgetfulness, the foggy brain, and that comes with PTSD, and it also comes with ADHD. It's hard because a lot of people that are on like in the neuro divergent brains, with autism and ADHD, have been picked on and bullied. So we quite often have PTSD. So it's a little hard to pull them apart. But I also think like, nature versus nurture. I think sometimes it's a little both. And it's kind of like when you break a leg, you could break it a million different ways. So like I kind of feel like my ADHD symptoms are from my trauma, is what I'm trying to get at. And I'm not saying that everyone that has ADHD has it from the trauma they lived through. They may have like the natural chemicals that cause we have like a hard time staying on task, and that like the executive function part of the brain, is not as highly active or developed. I mean, that goes offline when you live through trauma. So, or it could be born. So I think, it's kind of a either and a both. Like I said, depends. Like, did you break your leg, because you had weak bones, or did you break your leg because, you were in a car accident? It depends, So today is my first appointment here. I'm very early because I was afraid I was going to be late, which, can be, it's funny because I have both the symptoms of autism and ADHD. ADHD is a little more scattered and, like more like being late or being way super early because you don't trust yourself. And the autism is a little more very like rigid and routine. It's interesting living with both, let me tell you. It's a good time. A little sarcasm, like it's like having two very opposite, opposing behaviors. So I did test myself years ago. Sorry, just saw a message. I did test myself years ago online, and I had a very close friend at the time tell me that no way. And I do hear this a lot from people on YouTube that are autistic, and like people have their preconceived notions of what autism looks like. I know I did. I used to also, until I really started reading and studying and learning what the traits are. And like it is a spectrum. So You know, like not everyone with autism is going to display the traits, you know, exactly the same way. And so she said, no way, you know, like I took multiple tests online and I always came on the spectrum. She said, oh, those tests just make it so everyone does. So I'm like, okay, well, you take them. And she didn't come on the spectrum. A friend I know, shout out to you, you know who you are. I'll maybe like let you know I'm making this video. He pointed out the autism in me, sent me a really cool book, Neurotribes. I have not finished reading it. It's huge, but really appreciate it. Probably dig into it some more. But he's on the spectrum and he noticed, you know, like some of the traits in me. So my daughter was tested and she is what used to be called Asperger's, because high functioning autism. There's no Asperger's diagnosis anymore. High functioning used to be called Asperger's. Her brain, I can't remember. I think it was her brain processes, I want to talk about overthinking. I wanted to share that. Her brain processes faster than I think 97% of the population, they said. Kid is so freaking smart. But like, think about that. So her brain speed, her brain processing speed is so fast. It causes overwhelm, you know, like, she also has something, I never remember the name. I always have to ask her, but like where, we tend to like get overstimulated, but it's because our brain doesn't filter stimuli like a neurotypical brain. So we take in things a lot deeper, you know, we're not filtering. So like she can be like to the sun, like it's like overwhelming. She sees that thing that I forget the name of. She sees more of the light spectrum than other people. So like, you know, light can be overwhelming to her, you know, like, and so like having compassion and understanding, like even with the overthinking, people tell me all the time to not overthink. And I understand ruminating is not healthy for a person, but overthinking is something our brains do, you know, like we kind of can't help it. When your brain is processing faster than 97% of the population, you're gonna think more than other people, you know, you are going to overthink. It's just, you know, and it's a shame to shame people for their biology, you know, like we can't help it. So we can accommodate ourselves. Like before really understanding about my brain and the way it processes and the autism, this phone that I have can be extremely overwhelming to me because my brain wants to know. My brain likes to process data very much. It enjoys that. Like a brain, both like it metabolizes. We have the way a brain metabolizes data and like the way it metabolizes for the nervous system. And we also have the structure, you know, like how the brain was made, you know, is the, you know, with the executive function being, you know, smaller or lower, and the amygdala, the sensory perceptions being really heightened, you know. So like we're just made different, you know, like we do see things that other people don't. We see connections that other people don't because we're not filtering like neurotypicals are. And so gosh, I kind of just lost my train of thought there. Blah, 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 autism, brain processing too quick. See, like even, I think a lot of times people can look like they're slow, but they're actually processing so much. They lose track because there's so much data coming in. That's what I was going to say. The phone is like, gosh, it caused me so much overwhelm when I first got a smartphone, cell phone. To be able to access data 24/7 right at my fingertips is a very overwhelming thing to a brain that loves to process, you know, that craves that processing. Because think about it like as a body, the metabolizing. So someone that has a high metabolism, they can eat a lot of calories because they're metabolizing really quickly. Well, that's how our brains are. We take in a lot of data because we metabolize it really fast. So, this phone has been, so that's what I'm talking about. Like, we can't help how our brain is set up and structured, but we can accommodate. Like, now that I have realization of how my brain operates and what's going on, I don't necessarily have to, I can bring in more awareness about, okay, let's set this phone down and try and put some time limits on it. But my brain does just love information. It loves information, because it metabolizes. It's hungry. Just like, someone with a high body metabolism is, gets hungry for food. My brain gets hungry for data, and then gets shamed that, like, you think too much, you need to live more, you need to read less, you need to, like all of this. And while I do believe life is about balance, it's also, about the vessel we were given to live this life, So, all right, I'll just end there, just a little insight about how, a brain works that is, filtering less data and processing more, metabolizing more information than other brains. And, just have compassion for other people. Like, I think for me, having this official diagnosis, I'm going in right now, and having this official diagnosis sort of helps me to give myself the compassion that I want to. It gives me a, being validated by a medical person with what I already believe I know. And, just like being a little easier on myself and being able to accommodate and ask for accommodations and, like say, hey, maybe you can socialize every single day. For me, I can socialize, but my social battery gets drained and I need restoration, like I can't just go socialize day after day after day after day after day after day. It's overwhelming to me, So just like having compassion that people, not everyone's created the same. Not everyone's nervous system and brain is the same, just like giving that compassion, and then like giving that compassion to myself, like the expectations of the neurotypical world and with the socializing and the behavior and, not overthinking, not processing so much data, not craving data, like being told, stop craving data. Well, my brain does, my brain loves information. Don't shame me for it, and, like when I was younger, even like I would go out and then I would hit my social limit and want to like not, and then getting called like party pooper and, like all sorts of names, when really it just, it was, my nervous system was overwhelmed, So, all right, I'll just let you know what's happening most likely today. What happened with my daughter was an hour-long interview, and then we received a crap ton, very overwhelming amount of different like paper tests that you do, that you fill in the dots. I think there was at least 5 of them and 5 packets and like different standardized tests, and each packet had multiple pages, and they had her and me, her filling it out about herself, and someone close to her, me, filling out how I perceived her behaviors. And so after that was submitted, then the like day-long testing happened. So, all right, I'm going to go in. Peace out. So yeah, just to help bring compassion and understanding and, like building that bridge between people, people understanding neurodivergent behavior versus neurotypical, and yeah, just creating that bridge of understanding, so we can all connect and have empathy and allow each other to be who we are without you know, creating too many expectations and demands that someone else's brain may not be capable of, you know, living up to. All right, peace out. I'll check in again.